Welcome back to Suladan Plays Dark Souls 3. So last time we defeated the Nameless King. I think that's the name of the boss. It's either the Unnamed King, Nameless King, something to that effect. For some reason I keep getting it mixed up in my head. But in any case, to my knowledge, that is the last of the Dark Souls 3 bosses. And, Hat-Head's journey is nearing to its conclusion. Let me go ahead and take that off too. Hat-Head can return to his full outfitness. In any case, there's a couple things left for me to do. Not necessarily gameplay-related things as much as me giving my end-of-game critique and review, and then the endings. There are 3 main endings to Dark Souls 3. One of the endings does have a variation on it, which is, ending 2A and 2B. If my understanding is correct, Hat-Head will be capable of doing 2 of these endings, and the 3rd ending will have to be done using the character on my secondary personal playthrough, who still has to defeat Soul of Cinder. But, for the moment, I'm going to teleport back to Firelink, because, for one thing, that area, as long as I stay inside, should take less, computational power. And I have a kind of a general outline / rambling on the side monitor, so that if I get lost or wander too far off on tangent, I can find my way back to what I initially wanted to say. I don't exactly have a rhyme or reason or order to the things I would like to say here, but first, the environment, areas, and overall visual appeal of Dark Souls 3. The game is gorgeous. The areas feel unique. They do connect into each other somewhat, and if you look a bit into the lore, you can find multiple areas that are actually corrupted, aged, ashen versions of areas from Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2. Also, you could notice that in the names of things. Like the Deep seems to be the half memory of the name of the Abyss. The Wolf Knights are a reference to some cult that popped up in Artorias' name at some point, but they've long since lost Artorias' name. They just remember him as the Wolf Knight. If you go to Dark Firelink Shrine, she actually sells Artorias' armor, and it's called the Wolf Knight armor. Even on Solaire's armor, it just calls him the Sun Knight or something to that effect. The name of the place being Lothric itself is... I can't say for sure whether the game devs meant it that way, but there's a theory floating around that it's a corrupted combination of Lordran from Dark Souls 1 and Dranglek from Dark Souls 2. And if you add the TH in the middle, you end up with Lothric. I like it. It seems neat. It adds together. A notable mention on this concept would be the Farron Keep. In the game files, you can see where there was originally 4 flames that had to be put out to open the door to get to the Abyss Watchers. And if you look at the base of each of the 4 flames that you put out, there's a mural on the wall. I didn't pay much attention to it. But if you look at the mural, each of the 4 murals, the 3 that are still in the game, one depicts Nito, one depicts the Bed of Chaos, and one depicts the 4 Kings. The 4th one, whose model is still hidden in the game files, would have been Seethe, basically meaning that the entire area of you going through Farron Keep would be you reenacting Dark Souls 1, extinguishing the 4 souls. I'm not entirely sure why it got cut. It may have been for level design reasons, it may have been for timing reasons. I'm going to assume it's for either timing or level design. Those are the 2 most likely ones. It's the same reason that Kraid got cut from Metroid Prime. It was literally, hey, we don't have time for this. We'd have to redesign part of the level, just to go with what you got. Also of note is the fact that Farron Keep's Poison Swamp itself appears to be what became of Darkroot Garden, which itself is what became of Ulasil. One hint to that being, you find a pile of the Mushroom People's corpses, and the Gru themselves look like an old, like a corrupted version of the Bloatheads from Ulasil, which themselves were the result of, Manus being disturbed and his humanity going wild, which created the Abyss, in much the same way that the witch's flame, the flame soul being going wild, created the demons and the, Izalith and the chaos. It seems each of the Lord Souls is capable of creating some chaotic mess of a world when it's disturbed. The chaos flame and the abyss being two sides of that. I'm curious what Nito's soul and Gwen's soul could have done. I guess Gwen's soul itself, the Age of Fire, would be that. We don't know what Nito's soul would have become. There's a lot of deep lore behind all of these things, and I'm not going to go into it. The wiki has a beautiful page of lore tying the entire game series together, going area by area in some cases. That's where I got the information on Farron Keep. Also, while on the subject of the visual appeal of areas, the enemy placement in some cases, I didn't pay a lot of attention to it during the Let's Play, but, like I said, I've been slowly going through and playing behind. I think I started at about when I needed to fight Cursed Greatwood. I went back and started a new character and started just kind of taking my time and wandering through. There's a number of things in the environment to do with enemy placement that tell a story if you slow down and pay attention. You've got the, I don't know the official names for some of the enemies, so bear with me. In the Undead Settlement, you have the enemies with the pitchforks. They remind me of the scarecrows from Dark Souls 1, or the Darkroot Garden bush people. But they all seem to be worshipping the Cursed Greatwood, and that evangelist that's leading a group of them from the dilapidated bridge back to the underbridge bonfire, or wherever it is. Hang on, what's the name of that bonfire? I hit a button. I did a thing. Wrong window. My window focus was on the word phone. Undead Settlement, the cliff underside. Yeah, that evangelist. Well, let's just warp there and I'll show you. I mean, we've got plenty of time, because this is a bit of a ramble roam and then the endings. But there's an evangelist, some of those guys, and a dog. I complained about them because they slowed me down, and when I'm trying to get to the Boreal Knight and anything to do with that, because generally I don't want to fight them, but running from them is kind of meh and risky. I think it's this way. Yes. You get out of my way. That group there, that evangelist seems to be leading them up to the Cursed Greatwood. Like, you've got a church person leading them to where they're worshiping the Cursed Greatwood. Little details like that if you just sit back and see what the enemies themselves are doing, they glitch out a lot right there. I'm not gonna lie. I've seen the evangelist fall off, I've seen the dogs fall off, I've seen the guy with the hammer fall off, but they're being led up there to the church. Also, as you progress through the game, you'll notice the sun's going out and everything. I didn't really take notice of a lot of these things. There's the guy that you get in his cage and he drops you into the Pit of Hollows. Throughout the game, there's a lot of interesting enemies like that seem to offer more insight into the story. Down in the Ringed City, you've got some of the turtle clerics, around a tower worshiping, or they're kind of doing that. I said they could be praying, worshiping, begging. I don't know. They're doing something. In the Cathedral of the Deep, you've got, up in the chapel, there's the knights standing there, and then there's the other knights just kind of sitting on the pews, like, I don't know, they're lost in thought or something, but I feel like a lot of thought and a lot of heart went into the enemy placement, and I like it when you see little things like that you don't always notice them, but they're there. You've also got a lot of ambient environmental details that do the same thing, like, again, the Cathedral of the Deep, Rosaria's bedchamber, the door is bashed inward, The assumption being that Aldrich had come to visit, and he, you know, bashed in the door when she wouldn't let him in. Come on. I guess I don't really have to not say anything while it's loading. But yeah. Then you've got the whole thing where Yellowfinger Hazel, like, rebirthed enough times that they became one of the grub creatures. One thing that would have been neat, and like I've seen mention of it in posts, is like some people have said that they see like a trail of sludge left by Aldrich, and I've not seen that. Like I see bits of, you know, rubble and debris, but I don't really see the Aldrich style sludge they're talking about, unless they're talking about this hair stuff. Which that could just be her hair, because see, it's part of the model, it's just clipped down into the... I don't know. I just noticed those are all cribs. Huh. There's some weirdness going on with this whole shenaniganry. But these are apparently people that have been rebirthed one too many times. They end up turning into flesh. But if you come down here and look, you can see there's some ooze just kind of running down the wall, leaking from that bed chamber. It would be slightly easier to see if you notice it up here, but it doesn't really stand out much up here. But, you know, little details. You know, I lost my train of thought. Hang on. Yay for an outline. I kind of put it on the same topic area, but when you think about the entire game taken as a whole, and when you play the DLC in the proper order, like I didn't do during the Let's Play, my bad, it does piece together into a more coherent story if you actually play it in order. Like, the fact that Gale's the one that brings you there, he helps you fight Freda, he leaves you all these markings and strips of his fabric hanging in the Ringed City DLC. I can show that real quick. He's leading the way, and there's a few theories going around on it. Well, like with anything. Where was it? Hang on. This is the theory on the topic that I like. It's, somebody asked, why did Gale betray us in the end? And the response is, I doubt he actually betrayed us per se. He obviously knew the Dark Soul would corrupt him when he put it in, when he, you know, absorbed it. Everyone with half a brain and knows the history of the Abyss and the Dark Soul could understand that. Don't think he knows the history of the Abyss? The guy is a slave knight, somebody who's been around since Gwyn's cycle. He's the oldest living being in the entire franchise. I mean, I guess aside from the Unnamed King, but we're not counting bosses, apparently. I'm just quoting. Minus my little aside there. There's no way he wouldn't have dedicated some of that time into researching the Abyss, or looking into the Abyss. Look at him when we first meet him in the Cleansing Chapel. He seems relatively sane, so it's safe to say he's still capable of learning. Regardless, he knew the Dark Soul would corrupt him, so he leads us all the way to the end of the world, helping us with Freyd to get to the Dreg Heap, helping us with the Demon Prince to get to the Ringed City, leaving us a trail of messages and torn off pieces of his red hood to guide us throughout both areas. He knows we're the only being in the universe who would be capable to able to survive to the end of the world and successfully kill him after he's consumed the Dark Soul. After all, he trusted us enough to bring the blood of the Dark Soul back to the Painter Girl and help us create a brand new world. I just thought that was really neat. It's technically a Reddit post by Skurin, made a year ago, but it was just really neat and you know, well said. And I know I was going somewhere here, but I've lost... I don't know where I am. I don't recognize this spot. Oh, well, that's why I don't recognize this spot. That's not where I'm trying to go at all. Oops. This isn't the... Oh, no. This isn't where I'm trying to go at all. This is where the guru with the flame archers is. No wonder I didn't recognize it. This isn't where I meant to teleport at all. Right. Oh, I'm looking for the dreg heap, that's why. Also, one theory, that tower in the distance that you never really get to go to, it's disconnected from everything when you get over there. One theory is that could be the grave of the furtive pygmy. Because it says it's the lookout of a mausoleum. A mausoleum would be, you know, like a grave. And you don't get to go there. Never really thought about it when I played it. I just remember seeing a post that mentioned it. I keep forgetting the dreg heap is part of the DLC, and I teleport to the wrong place. Bear with me. But yeah, basically, the whole story with Gale, playing through it again, I think is beautifully done, and it's just, you know, it's really neat. Although the one problem is, in his original quest, he was going to go get the blood of the Dark Soul from the pygmies, but since the pygmies had all died, the blood had dried up, which again, I point out, pigments are generally dried up. But, in any case, I saw something in the distance moving. I guess it's an angel. But yeah, that's the thing with Gale. Also, fun fact, apparently... Oh, it's that angel. This is something I learned as well. There's this is a pilgrim right here that you can talk to and befriend, and she'll sell you stuff. The old woman. You give her ashes back to the handmaiden, you'll get the items she sold. It said when you defeat Gale, she will be dead, and there will be this lone angel flying around. The angel is completely passive unless if you attacked the old lady, the angel will not be passive. I'm hoping not talking to her won't, you know, count as that. But, yeah, there seems to be a connection there. Like, that's I guess that's what the Hollows become at this point, is either they become angels or the Mercmen down there. But I didn't notice back then, see there's a piece of his hood tied, and his messages glow so much brighter than everyone else's. I just really like that. I think the DLC is beautiful. I do think some of the enemy is like the Mercmen, for being basically hollows, I feel like they do too much damage, but at the same time it's meant to be a challenge for you at the end of the game. So it's kind of where game design and enemy design are clashing, because they look like hollows, and I never really like it when the generic mindless hollows do a lot of damage. Because it just feels weird the way they flail about for them to do so much. But, you know, there's that. Let's see, on to the topic of lock-on. This had to be mentioned. Dark Souls 3, to me, of the 3 Dark Souls games, seems to have the clumsiest of the lock-on systems. Now, to me, Dark Souls 2 had the better of the lock-on systems for one reason and one reason alone. The larger bosses had multiple lock-on points. There are a few bosses in Dark Souls 3 that do this, but there are glaring bosses that needed it that didn't, like Midir, that should have had a head lock-on point, and at least a lock-on point in the forelimbs, if not the hind limbs as well. I can see where 5 lock-on points might be excessive, so I would drop it down to just say 3, head, and the 2 forelegs. Even just torso in the forelegs, but head is his weak point, so I like the lock-on point being in his head. My second issue is in Dark Souls 3 that the lock-on seems to break far too easily. I do understand that if you lose line of sight on an enemy after maybe 1 or 2 seconds, you lose lock-on. That I get. But you've got moments where the lock-on just seems to break for the sake of breaking. I feel like the game designer may have done this to add it as an extra level of mechanical challenge. Ooh, now your lock-on randomly can break. I know it's not really random, but it brings to mind the fact that in Smash Bros. Brawl, you could randomly trip, and a lot of people didn't like it. I don't play competitively, so it never really stood out to me, but I do understand from a competitive mindset you want to reduce as much random stuff as you can. I kind of feel like that's why the item generation in Mario Kart has gotten worse and worse to me over the years. I liked being able to get a blue shell in first place in Mario Kart 64 just so that I could hit the brakes, let somebody pass me, and then peg them with it. It's fun. Now in the newer Mario Kart games, back then it did it too, but I've looked at the item distributions and it's not as glaring. Like, you could still get triple red shells and triple green shells with a, fair margin in first place. Now you generally just get green shells and banana peels, as of the last Mario Kart I played, which was, I think, the DS version. Or the GameCube version. Yeah, I don't remember which, but I had the DS and the GameCube version. I don't remember which one I played first and which one I played last. I think the GameCube one I actually played later. I liked Double Dash. Being able to carry 2 items was neat. I like the ability to get any item at any position in the race. Nobody's going to recognize this probably, but in the N64 era, the XG2 game was good with that. But items weren't so much random then as there were items set in certain parts of the race course, and generally the harder hitting items were on, secret side paths and shortcuts that themselves were hard to get to kind of balance it out. Your race vehicles also had health, so you could, take somebody out of the race by sheer pelting them until they're no longer a problem, which was also fun and not something I've seen a lot of other racing games do. But back to the topic of Dark Souls, the lock-on mechanic seems to be one of its weaker traits here, and I don't quite get why, unless it was done just for sheer, let's add another layer of mechanical difficulty. And it doesn't, to me, feel like a mechanical difficulty as much as it feels like I'm fighting randomness. If you integrate it into the game where it feels like an actual mechanic within the game, it's different than when it feels like you're fighting bad controls. I don't quite know how to put it to words, but it's important that it feels like you're actually, fighting the stuff within the game, not fighting the game. That pretty much sums up the topic of the target lock. As far as combat goes, well, here's another negative one. Player versus environment combat is generally great in Dark Souls 3. I do have, a few enemies that, no matter what playstyle you're using, there's always going to be certain enemies that are more difficult for you. If you're a strict pyromancer, fire-resistant enemies are going to be a nightmare. If you're strictly using melee weapons, enemies that, like the Herald Knight, the giants that walk around with the big machete things, yeah, they're annoying. I also found out you can nearly one-shot them with a plunge attack. But yeah, different enemies. I'm not really going off on that as much as the NPC invaders / unique enemies that are meant to simulate invaders. One example would be the 2 brigands outside of the Cathedral of the Deep, or the sword master that drops the Uji katana. It's glaring to me there. This actually connects to another topic that I should have mentioned first, but the PvP in Dark Souls 3, from what I've heard, and I've not done a lot of it myself, I'm not generally a PvP person, Dark Souls 3 is a roll spam fest. Excuse me, let me put the focus back in the right window so I can, this. Look how much I can roll. Yeah, this is a problem. It's a result of they wanted to bring the faster-paced, more mobile combat style of Bloodborne into Dark Souls, and that requires a lot of rolling. The problem is that this becomes the end-all method of fighting. Is roll, 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 roll. In Dark Souls 1 and 2, mainly 2, it's been a while since I played 1, so I can't speak as heavily for it. I know in 2, you had to manage your stamina more. Any roll after the first, you took a stamina penalty, and it took more stamina to roll, so you couldn't generally roll more than, even with, my obscene levels of stamina 4 or 5 times, I think. When you can roll this much, it becomes the end-all only real way to fight, and when one method becomes too good, it makes all the other methods bad. For example, if using a great shield is too good, then everybody will just do that. You want the different varieties of combat to each have their own strengths and weaknesses, but be nearly level to one another. If I want to play using just miracles only, I shouldn't feel like I'm crippling myself because, newsflash, Dark Souls 3, the lightning spears are generally... One Chaos Fireball deals as much as about 3 lightning spears at point-blank range, and the lightning spears only do full damage at point-blank range because they broke the damage into 2 hitboxes. One is at melee range. even though it's a spear and looks like it should be long range. I have a personal problem with that. On the other hand, they made the healing miracles much better. There's even a chime that increases the range of healing miracles to almost obscene levels. The ones that are area of effect, I think I have the chime. Yeah, Felianor's chime. Affects miracles that heal, cure, or provide other enhancements. Expands the range of vicinity affecting miracles that heal, cure, or provide other enhancements. My side character does, when I co-op, I use a lot of healing stuff for people, and it's fun just how much range that gives the bountiful sunlight. I think that's the one, the area of effect heal. Really nice. That chime itself also, its ability is that it gives an area of effect regeneration, which is really nice, and like doesn't cost a lot of focus points either. So yeah, that's a really good chime. But they made healing really good, and they did kind of make each spell group have its own niche, however you want to pronounce it. The miracles do really good with the buffs and healing. Pyromancy is good with splash and hitting multiple targets. Area control. And sorcery I haven't actually played with, but I assume is better for single target damage. Haven't really played in this game yet, so can't really speak highly on it. That just seems to be the remaining magical niche that hasn't been filled. Single target, high damage, multi-target, medium damage, and then the buffs and heals, and there the miracles end up getting the low damage of the group. I love the idea of focus points, and giving the different weapons different abilities and stuff. That works really well. My secondary character, I actually, went out of my way to use weapon skills more, and it's neat. Especially the swords that, let me show you the... Do I not have a broadsword on me? Does any of them have stance? We'll just go with that. This I underestimated. Shield break, and the window lost focus for some reason. Let's see, lunge forward or guard break. That's really useful if you have a shield with that, because it's a little quirky trying to kick, but it's easy to do that. So I ended up using a broadsword a lot for the guard breaking against enemies. It really works well with the spells and weapon arts and such. I also adore that they made, paired weapons a single item. It makes upgrading them easier, it makes keeping them equipped easier, because it means instead of having to switch my shield to another cestus, I can just push the button. So to me it really worked well there. I would have loved to have seen power stance still exist, so the weapons that aren't paired can be kind of power stanced to get pseudo weapon arts for them. Like if I want to use two big ol' axes, it'd be nice to be able to, with the right stat investment, do the power stance and do the big, double overhead swing and all that. Just my thoughts there. But I think the weapon variety and armor variety really worked decently. I can't speak for player versus player, but player versus environment, I do see a nice number of weapons. However, a lot of the weapons I see are split between dex and strength, and that bothers me a little. I do, you see a lot of hybrid ones, I guess. I do get why. Yes, it requires dexterity to do these things, and it gives you a second stat to pump points into if you want, but I like there being more strictly strength and strictly, I didn't want to do it. That's what I wanted. Strictly strength and strictly dexterity weapons, and it seems mostly like there's more hybrids than there are, one or the other. I do know that with the right, infusion stone, you can shift it to strength or dexterity, so I guess that's what they're aiming for there. With the heavy gem and the sharp gem. So maybe that's what they're aiming for. I don't know. But there does seem to be a good variety of weapons and armor. Although, since so much of the armor is so heavy, you'd have to, invest a lot of points to use any of it. So Fashion Souls is a bit of a pain. That was one thing I loved about Dark Souls 1. Everybody had such high encumbrance, you could do fashion souls. One of my favorite sets is to Artorias helmet, Artorias torso, and then Havel gloves and Havel boots. Because I think Artorias' armor looks better with the big bulky gloves and boots. Artorias' boots just look so tiny. Like, I don't get it. They always stuck out to me as odd. But since it was based on his corrupted armor, you know, I just assumed it was because of that. Let's see, that's mostly what I've got listed to mention. Dark Souls 3, I really enjoy it. I have enjoyed it a lot more in my second playthrough when I've taken the time to actually explore and wander and do all these things. I should note also that in the Let's Play I was playing blind, unlike the other two, so I didn't know where stuff was, and I somehow managed to miss more stuff than I thought possible. NPCs, quest lines, tons of items. The third ending, which I've mentioned I can't get on this character because you have to follow a specific quest line. So if you want to know the journey of Sigurd, Patches, Anri, Horus, Cirrus, Irina, Aegon, and other unnamed NPCs that I didn't find in my Let's Play, so I'm not going to spoil the names, I highly recommend playing Dark Souls 3, or watching somebody that did them properly. There is also a second thing I can do here. If I give her the Firekeeper soul, this ties in with the other ending, but if you end up getting Dark Sigils and want to get rid of them, the Firekeeper soul will grant her that ability. I've never actually given it to her, but let's do it here and see what it does.
Ashen One, this is much like what lies within me. Then let it find its own place within my bosom. She will understand. We are both Firekeepers after all.
See, now she can heal Dark Sigils.
Forgive me, sister. May the flames guide thy way.
Okay, I don't have any Dark Sigils. You talk to Yol. Back at the start, we had the one pilgrim that said he would help us. He has an option that's draw out true power. It'll give you a free level up, but in doing so, you also will get Dark Sigils, which I don't have any because I didn't do the thing.
Ashen One for the blink.
You know, they will do things that, you know, we can't see for here. So I will leave it a little mysterious and murky and not really explain it. In the eyes of the Firekeeper, you'll notice she's blind. She does have eyes, though, in her character model, which is weird, because the character models are designed in such a way you could have a character model without eyes. But if you use a free camera, again, the guy that did the Out of Bounds video, I saw it, he clipped through her little helmet, and she does have eyes. They're whited. They have, you know, gray. They're grayed out a little bit. But you know, they are there. Likewise, the hag here has very interesting custom red eyes. There is one other tangent I should show real quick, because on the topic of eyes, before I give her the thing, the painting girl has very unique eyes. And there's some theories on why that is, but I don't know. I'm gonna let the eyes speak for themselves once we make it there. What? Who? Where? Oh, you're still here? Okay. Oh yeah, I forgot the chapel's on fire. Also, Freda is apparently an Ashen One, so yeah, there's that. But yeah, you walk over here, and you don't notice unless you turn the camera around. She has bright orange eyes with slitted pupils. It's been mentioned that they're kind of like the eyes of the primordial serpents, but it's, you know, unknown. So that could mean that she might be a hybrid.
My thanks, Ashen One. I will assuredly finish the painting of a cold, dark, and very gentle place. One day, it will make someone a goodly home.
One thing that puzzles me is, won't the painting burn up in here too? Is the painting itself the world, or is it just the portal to the world? So, like, if the painting is destroyed, does it destroy the world? There's some weird questions like that, because, like, if the outside world is falling apart and would fall into ruin and would be destroyed, then even if you made a painting within that world that led to a better world, well, when this world decays and falls apart and finally collapses, would that destroy it, or would that just break the link and leave the other one as its own isolated bubble? I don't know. But anyway, on the topic of eyes, you can give her eyes of the Firekeeper, which allow the second ending.
Ashen One, are these eyes?
Yes.
How gracious of thee, Ashen One.
Her eyes were taken from
The
her.
very things we Firekeepers have been missing.
Oh, also Hawkwood. He's another NPC that we didn't do the thing for. The little guy over there that reminded me of the Crestfallen.
Ashen One, my thanks for the eyes thou hast given, but Firekeepers are not meant to have eyes. It is forbidden. These will reveal through a sliver of light frightful images of betrayal. A world without fire. Ashen One, is this truly thy wish?
Okay.
Of course not. Please, kill me. And before I am drawn to the seduced by the thin light and the awful betrayal, mayst thou thy...
The idea behind the Firekeepers not having eyes is so that they can't see what the world has become, so their image of the world remains untainted. I'll do that in a minute because I'm probably going to try to get the second ending, but as I've done with every Dark Souls game, the first time I beat it, I always linked the flame. In the first Dark Souls, it's because I thought that was the right thing to do. That seemed to be, at the time, the best answer. By the time the second Dark Souls comes around, you realize it's more of an endless cycle. And originally there was just the one ending, but then by the time I got to it, they had added the second ending. And so I went with Aldia in his option to look for what lies beyond both light and dark. And in the third game, well, this is my first playthrough, so I'm going to go with the Link to Fire ending, and then we'll loop back and do the other ending, and then, if I can beat Lord of Cinder, Soul of Cinder, I'll show the third ending. So, for the second ending, you summon the Firekeeper after having given her her eyes. For the first ending, you link the first flame. You can set up one playthrough to have all the endings available, to where you can link it, let the fire end, or do the third thing. But first, let's link it and see what it looks like. And I have a backup copy of the save, so assuming that works, I can do both things. Oh, that's it? No big... Oh. Kind of expected a big, thing to show whoosh, flame, and the sun comes back, and all the things. But if you haven't noticed, each cycle of the Age of Fire is taking more and more energy to maintain. Originally it was just Gwen. Then, I don't remember what we called the Chosen Undead, and then now it's gotten to the point where it takes a whole group of Lords of Cinder just to maintain it, and each age is shorter than the last. It's leading up to its eventual just fizzling out. It's taking more and more fuel to maintain the fire. I kind of expected a bigger cutscene there, I'm going to be honest. And then I went and took the screenshots and forgot that was going to show up. And my mouse cursor's trying... Nope, there we go. Let's see, Steam. Come on, give me the achievement. There's an achievement for each of the endings, too. But yeah, next we're gonna loop back and do the second ending. Second ending A. I'm not doing second ending B because that requires killing the firekeeper, which I'd rather not do. I might. I don't wanna. Also, beautiful soundtrack. I should point out that, you know, I've got the... For the sake of being able to hear me talk during boss fights, I don't have the music volume at full, but there's some really beautiful music scores in all 3 Dark Souls games. I would recommend, like, looking into it. I still love the way that they designed Duke's Dear Freya in Dark Souls 2 to... the theme itself just sounds like it belongs with a spider, and it really fit. Slave Knight Gale's theme is gorgeous. I listen to that sometimes when I'm, you know, doing other stuff, but the musical scores for these games is just beautiful. The level design, the attention to detail, even if the world, you know, even if there's different opinions on the coherence of the world, just the amount of love and detail that went into the design for the worlds is beautiful. The way things render to scale, even in the far distance where nobody could see it. The pieces of Anor Londo in Dark Souls 1 that render, that you can't ever see without a free camera. It's just like they're rendered in full, almost full detail. And it's like, it's like the hair on top of the Statue of Liberty. It was just done for the artistic beauty of it, even though nobody gets to see it. And Dark Souls 2 and 3 both have aspects like that. And it's just beautiful. Begin Journey 2. No. And now is when I close the game and try to load the previous save. Actually, let me... I'm gonna travel to the Kiln and see if I can... if it'll give me the option again. It'll save me a little bit of trouble. That would make a difference, wouldn't it? I want to see, like, if the bonfire's still over here. It's going out. Are you kidding me? And the sun is still dark, and it's like, I don't know, that seems a little weird to me. But, I'm gonna jump cut to the next part. Okay, so this apparently worked.
Ashen on out of it. Ashen, but these were the wall ashen.
I'm gonna just say it and see what happens.
Of course. I serve thee. This will be our private affair. No one else may know of this. Stay thy path. Find lords to link the fire, and I will blindly tend to the flame until the day of thy grand betrayal. Ashen one, forgive me if this soundeth strange. The eyes show a world without fire. A vast stretch of darkness. But 'tis different to what is seen when stripped of vision. In the far distance, I sense the presence of tiny flames, like precious embers, left to us by past lords, linkers of the fire. Could this be what draws me to this strangely enticing darkness? Ashen one, if heal me, and strip these eyes from my person. I will return as the firekeeper I once was, as it has always been. Ashen one, if thine heart should bend, kill me, and strip these eyes from my person. I will return as the firekeeper I once was, as it has always been. Mayst thou thy peace discover.
Yeah, I forgot, if she's killed, she just revives. Like, unique NPC thing for Dark Souls, but Also of note, this game really uses a lot of, like, virtual memory. Like, this is my actual RAM usage down in the bottom, but then the virtual memory just climbs up a lot. I've seen it go up to like 15, 16 before. I don't know, just a weird thing I have noticed. And not something I've seen anybody else mention. I'm sure it has nothing to do with the fact that the difference between like actual RAM usage and virtual memory is probably not something generally observed. One of my little sidebars. When they coded the RAM monitor, they whoopsed and set it to virtual memory instead, so it doesn't actually show me my RAM usage. So when I noticed the Dark Souls was using more than it should, I just started looking into it. But yes, let us summon the Firekeeper. Shh, I like screenshots.
The first flame quickly fades. Darkness will shortly settle. But one day, tiny flames will dance across the darkness. Like embers linked by Lord's Pass.
Yeah, this is the point where you can technically kill her and get ending 2B, but I'm not doing that.
Ashen One, hearest thou my voice still?
And that's the second ending. The third one's going to take a little bit more setup. And we've seen the credits, so, you know. Jump cut! And thus it was so that the Sunlight Knight Solaire has come to put the things on the chairs. Because things. Yes, this is my side character. Also, this is what I was talking about with the miracle range. You can see a second ring outside the first one that it just really has a nice range. And this is the guy that you get the transposing things in. Which is where you do the soul transposition for all these nice fancy things. Prisoner's Chain, Moonlight Greatsword, Artorias' Sword. On that, yeah, I'll get to that in a minute. First, let us do the chair things. Big skull. Speaking of which, what about the, That's right, there's 5 chairs, one of them's occupied, so the one at the very top does get stuff. I think. That's the Abyss Watchers. I find it weird that their embers or their ashes or whatever are all their heads. Your aim is terrible, sir.
Well met. All is as planned, is it not?
He's the one that didn't run for homes.
For 5 thrones, glory be my lord slaying champion. It is all thy doing. The stage is set for me to play my part as lord. To go, speak with the firekeeper. The eyes show a world destitute of fire, a barren plain of endless darkness, a place born of betrayal. So I willed myself lord to link the fire, to paint a new vision. What is thine intent? Now, do not be away over long.
So Leo's intent is obviously to find his son. Oh, wow, you're over here now. Okay.
The 5 lords sit their 5 thrones.
Ah, my sword is apparently...
All thanks to thee, most worthy of lords, Ashen One, with the lords as thy witness. Bend thy knee afore the bonfire's coiled sword, and let the lords' embers acknowledge thee as their true heir, a true lord, fit to link the fire. Farewell, and may the flames...
Can't help it.
Noble lords of Cinder,
No,
the fire fades. And the lords go without thrones.
But the thrones are right there. I don't get that part.
Surrender your fire to the true heir.
Seems also like there should be another throne pop up for him, but I don't get how this stuff works. It's so Lair, I can't help it. He makes such good
Let
screenshots.
him grant death to the old gods of Lordran, deliverers of the
She does
first
remember the
flame.
name Lordran. I didn't remember that. It's been a while. And that's what sends us to the kiln of the first flame, which, you know, is basically the Firelink Shrine. Also, since this character has the armor, I'm going to show you what I was talking about before. I don't actually have the strength to do this, but... Oh, wait. Oh, I still have that ring. Why do I not have a ring there? I don't... You know what? I don't have a clue what's going on with my rings. I'm gonna go ahead. I don't have a flame ring, do I? Oh well. Sorry, this is naturally the best time for me to be fanoodling with all this random stuff. That's normally what I'd have on. I'm just gonna do the... You know, it's a few percent more. But yeah, I like that armor set, because the boots and the gloves just really seem fitting on there. I like the big bulkiness of it. I don't actually have his shield or his sword, so I can't, like, do the full armor setup. I'm also gonna go with... There it is, 89% fire. So we need that. Also, I love this weapon right here. The Demon Scout. It's basically the gold tracer from Dark Souls 1. But you can do this. Hang on, wrong. Well, I can't do it with that shield, but... Oh, where are you going? Where? Yeah, that. That's fun. It's a nice weapon. It also acts as a pyromancy catalyst. And this is a very underrated pyromancy. I love it. Boulder Heave. It's hard to hit with it in PvP, but if you hit somebody with it and their shield's not up, they're knocked flat on their back. And if it's an NPC, you can just keep basically stun locking them and, you know, take them off the nearest cliff, which is so fun. The Lord of Cinder, though, is you know, a fire type, so it's probably not going to work for me. And then the Sunlight Straight Sword, you can do that. 10% damage will. And it affects anybody standing near you, so, you know, there's that. Now back to my previous plan. I don't actually usually wear, like, Solaire's bracelets because they're kind of heavy, and I like not fat rolling. So this is what I've been going with. You know, then, you know, different shield and all. Then I switch to that when I need that. But, yes, let us do the thing. 128. See if I can get another level up out of this. Okay, I'm gonna go do that. Then I'm gonna try fighting Lords of Cinder. We'll see how that goes. And do the third ending. You know, how much of it you see will depend on how it goes, because I'm not intending on showing a full hour long, look, me trying to fight the thing again. Because we've already done that.
Ashen for the blink. Very well done, taken.
But I'm gonna go ahead and get this. Leveling that up. Well, 40 is where I was gonna leave it anyway, but the Demon Scarf scales off both of those, and so does Pyromancy, so that's what I was pumping points into. Oh, 3 stamina. Let's do that.
Ashen 1.
And, you know, I'll see you when I get there. Wait, this seems to be in the same time period as the Ringed City. Now that I think of it, look, you can see, like, the twisted landscape bits from the Ringed City there. I never really did appreciate that or notice that. So yeah, the Kiln of the First Flame, where you go fight the Lords of Cinder, may very well be in the same time period as the Ringed City. So that's a thing. See, that's the Ringed City. I never noticed that. Like, I mean, that's the way the terrain looked during the Ringed City. Then again, the way time is convoluted, the whole game could be taking place at that point in time with you know, phasing in and out of past time periods, for all I know. As Solaire once said, time is convoluted. In this place. I think he said Lordran at that point, but you get the idea. Anyway, now we'll go onward to the thing. Now that I've properly looked at the stuff. Who summons? Oh, hey. Oh, that's right, I can summon the, Londor Paleshade. And I think... Yeah, because I've done the quest line for the third ending, I can summon Uria. No comment. I'm gonna summon Uria, because, you know, plot. I've been trying to do all the plot summons, because, like, I've been doing all the character side quests. You can, in one playthrough, do all the different NPC side quests. There's a couple that you've got to be careful on. You can't do a certain ones involving Pale Tongues until you finish another one whose questline is broken if you ever use a Pale Tongue. So there's, you know, a couple little spots that you just got to be careful on the order. Time for me to die horribly. Ow, that, my whole stamina bar. And we win. There we go. He was still taking damage even after he was dead. That's funny. Soul of the Lords. And, you know, just as a minor aside, you get... Actually, let me just go to the shrine and we will show you. You don't get a ton of souls from him. It's funny, Midir is, like, seems to be the boss in the game where you get the most souls.
Ashen for the Lord Link.
Okay, let's see. No, you're not who I'm looking for. If you go... If I could... I get turned around so easily in this place. With Ludlith down, you can still transpose items. You just have to have given him the transposing kiln prior to this. I'm trying to remember what you get from the Soul of Cinder. Soul of the Lords. One is the Sunlight Spear miracle. The other is the Firelink Greatsword, which is the coiled sword. You know, it's neat. You finally get to use the bonfire sword as a weapon, basically. Actually, let me make sure that's not an item. It is. Skull ring. That's how you get the skull ring. Okay. I've got another idea for a playthrough I'd like to do that I need the skull ring for. Skull ring plus shield plus a character. Basically, I'm making Braum. I'm gonna co-op with people and just be there to distract the boss with a great shield and the cestus. Because, you know, it's what Braum would do. Yeah, I guess I can. Yeah, I'll just leave the armor I've got. Both the coiled sword and the sunlight spear look cool. I've not been using great swords as much, so, you know. And the lightning spear miracles don't do a ton of damage, so I don't know whether the sunlight spear is or isn't. Wait, how do I... There you go. Me having all 8 of these is supposed to do a thing. One moment. Okay. 2 things of note. One, if you summon Uria for the final boss, after beating him, you can go to Firelink and get her the Black Set and Dark Drift sword from her. It says, kill the Soul of Cinder and touch the fire, which should initiate the... not link the fire. It shouldn't. I heard a door open and now I'm paranoid that somebody's going to be coming this way. It says touch the Soul of Cinder. No, kill the Soul of Cinder and touch the fire. Do not summon the Firekeeper, because that will activate the end of fire anyway. I'm gonna do that for the fun of it. So let's try it. It should do the other ending. Yep. You notice the sun is black and white. Just seeing that sun on his chest smirking as the camera fades. That's the usurpation of fire ending. Instead of kindling the flame or letting it go out, he draws it into himself as the Lord of Hollows. And that is the third ending of Dark Souls 3. And Solaire has completed his quest. He is now the sun that he has been searching for all along. Also, I love the way the hole in the sky looked with the white corona. That was just beautiful. But yes, this has been Suladan Plays Dark Souls 3. After this, I do want to play the Dark Souls 1 mod known as Daughters of Ash, now that I know the name of it. Sadly, it is only available for Prepare to Die edition, not the remastered, and it is a single-player mod as far as I know. I will figure out how to do that by next week. But I'm going to be doing something slightly different. Since the Daughters of Ash is, well, one, since Dark Souls 3, since Dark Souls as a whole has been kind of eating up the third slot on my channel for like, what, 2 years now? I don't know. I'm going to alternate every other Friday between Daughters of Ash and another game, which a friend of mine has requested and I have been interested to try. So we will, get to that when we get to that. And, like I said, this has been Suladan Plays Dark Souls 3. As far as I know, that is all there is to do. Also, following Solaire's journey, I have written up a little guide to how to, if you want to proceed through the whole game and get all the NPC quests all on one page. I pieced it together from different areas of the wiki and whatnot. But if anybody's interested, I can post that file. But yeah, it is possible to do all the NPCs, and you can even set it up to where you can do any of the 4 endings. The difference between Link the Flame and Usurp the Flame would be having her use the Firekeeper Soul to cure the Dark Sigils before touching the flame. And then, the 2 summoning her endings would all be available. But if I had summoned her for the boss, which I didn't because she has a horrible habit of walking into his grab attack constantly, her armor and stuff would be right here.
Our lord and liege, 'twas the soul of my sister, Elfrida. A poor wench turned to ash, who would abandon Mundor. If thou wouldst, let it nourish thy lordship, and in return do her one small kindness. Remember those who stayed by her to the end, in the shadows cast by fire. And lastly, my lord, take up thy rightful mantle of usurper.
Our Lord, I prithee, when the moment cometh, the age of fire was founded by the old gods, sustained by the linking of the fire. But the gods are no more, and the all-powerful fire deserveth a new heir, our Lord of Hollows. It shall be who weareth the true face of mankind.
She sells, a few things, some spells, the rings that'll let you retain human appearance, phantom appearance, some of those. She's a good source of poison throwing
Honorable usurper, so that we
whatnot.
Hollows in most honest shape of...
Also, one downside, well, one effect of having Dark Sigils is you do take on hollowed appearance when you die. On the stat page, you'll see hollowing level under your level, which 99 is as high as it goes. It may be there even when you don't have Dark Sigils. I don't know, I didn't pay attention to it, but it shows when you have Dark Sigils. But in any case, this has been Suladan Plays Dark Souls 3, and I've said that 3 times now. Such coincidence. In any case, see you next time, and as always, hope you've enjoyed watching. Thank you for watching if you're here. Hope you've enjoyed watching, and I hope to see you on the next game, or I hope for you to see me on the next game. I never know quite how to say that, but in any case, bye.